just
Okay,
for
cool.
healthcare and stuff.
Cool, yeah.
But yeah, to make an homage to the music we love.
Yeah, that's so awesome.
Yeah, and I feel like there's a lot. I mean, it's such personal music, I would argue.
Yeah.
And I think it's interesting to kind of humanize the artist
Yeah.
behind it rather
Yeah,
than like
yeah.
leave it an enigma.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Uh,
Can we get anything? You guys want anything to drink or any water or any?
Oh, I'm okay.
We're all good.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you though. Yeah, we just want to go over like the formation of Empire, why, like, what it does for you guys as far as
Sure.
an outlet. Because
Yeah.
clearly, I'd argue the demographic listening to it find some solace from the music, right?
I hope so. Yeah.
Yeah, I know that's the goal.
Yeah.
But yeah, what inspired you guys? How it's helped, or even
Right.
not helped your personal life and your relationship? Because I'm sure it's nuanced and
Yeah. Well.
Rolling, by the way.
yeah.
Yeah, you're good.
And it's super casual. You can look at me or the camera
Okay.
as normal as it feels. Yeah.
Well, it's really complicated.
I'm
Actually.
sure.
So, I've been playing music in all my, like, ever since I was like 16, 15. We were both in band. I played trumpet and she played flute. That's how we met,
Very
actually.
cool.
Anyway, I'd been playing in bands all my life, and I was in a bunch of bands, and through high school and in college, and they're all super obscure. You mostly wouldn't have heard of them or whatever. But then, when I graduated college, and Kathy graduated a year before me, we moved back to our hometown in Fenton,
Okay.
and we started a band, kind of bridging between the two, called Anna Flyaway, that Kathy played guitar in, and one of my best friends, Danny, played bass in, who was the original bassist for Empire, and a couple of other friends or whatever. We were writing an album and playing shows or whatever, and then it became pretty apparent. Well, okay, so to back up a little bit, one of my other friends was recording us, just DIY. He just picked up some recording gear and whatever, and he was recording us. He recorded a bunch of my other projects anyway, but then he moved away to college, or to a different college or whatever, and he couldn't record us anymore. So I was like, well, I don't want this recording to die. I want something to happen, because otherwise it's one of those things that's just lost forever, right? And I was like, well, I need to get good enough to record. And so I started learning how to record, and I was like, well, I started Empire as a project to start recording, to learn how to record so we could finish the Anna Flyaway album.
Gotcha. So that was just like a trial.
Right.
project. Okay.
And then as we kept going, it became pretty apparent that Anna Flyaway was going to break up. And so we finished the recording for Anna Flyaway. Everybody was really gracious and came and finished that or whatever. But then we already had a jumping off point. We already had these songs. I had recorded like an EP. My goal for that EP was to record it completely, every instrument by myself, without any distortion. I don't know why that was the thing I wanted to do, but I did that. Anyway, after a few months after Anna Flyaway had broken up, we were like, well, we have this. And so Kathy joined Empire, and then Danny, the bassist from Anna Flyaway, joined Empire, and then we started doing it. So that was kind of the beginning of that.
Sure.
Started out as a solo project, and then grew into, whatever it was.
What were you guys listening to? Like, clearly music was an important outlet for both of you guys from like a young age. What were you guys listening to that made you want to participate rather than just observe?
You can go first.
Back then, I was super into Ryla Kiley and Death Cab.
Okay.
I'd say those were my two, top. It's hard to remember.
I've got like a holy grail
Those
list
were
for
my-
me. It's like
yeah.
Mineral.
Okay.
I loved American football. Death Cab, huge influence. Jimmy Eat World, Penfold, Appleseed Cast,
Okay.
Get Up Kids, Knapsack.
I listened
Promise
to
Ring.
it was 35.
Yeah. So those are the bands that really, really, really influenced
Sure.
me. Yeah.
And then was there a big community for that type of music? And I hesitate using genre names just because
Sure,
it's silly.
Sure.
Yeah.
Around here there wasn't. You know, we were always playing shows at the beginning with like bands that it just was not a fit. We would, you know, I feel like we were kind of like well, yeah, you can play, kind of, you know, and it was just a bunch of like, what kind of bands would you say? Like,
just like butt rock bands.
Yeah. Yeah, it wasn't.
But also at that point, so Empire started in 2005, 2006. Okay. 2006, I think it was 2006. And it was, Michigan was really into a hardcore, like, but a grindcore phase. It was like a big grindcore phase. When I was growing up, so I taught Kathy how to play guitar, and this would have been early 2000s or something like that. But growing up, we had this venue called the Local. It's called Flint Local 432, and that was an amazing scene. It really focused on local artists, and they would also do a really good job pairing up like-minded bands and genres and stuff. And there was a band called Kimberly Collective that was same exact style that we play. Really good, actually. We run a label called Count Your Lucky Stars, and we reissued one of their albums on vinyl. Really, really good band. And we played shows with them in high school, kind of looked up to them. And we played this one show with Benton Falls, which was a really, really good band, and another band called Counterfeit, also a really good band. And that like show changed my life. And we were already playing that style of music, but to see other people doing it. So the Local had a really good sense of community, but it stopped being a venue probably in the early 2000s-ish. And actually, it made a comeback. And our last show ever, we played at the Local, which was really important to us because it's in Flint, and it was like our second home. And but in the interim, no, there was not really a community. And I think what really tended to happen was because there were so few bands playing that style of music, we kind of found each other through MySpace mostly. You know what I mean? And then so we started booking tours, and when we were booking tours, we kind of came across those bands, or they came across us, or whatever. Like Joie de Vie. That's one of, I don't know, that was like a really big connective tissue for us to see that other bands were doing that. And Stevie, the drummer at the time, had messaged us about putting on a show in Rockford, Illinois, which is where they're from. And we just, as soon as we heard them, I was like, wow, this is too good, you know? And so, but anyway, and then those kind of bands that started popping up, and they were kind of all across the country. It wasn't just like one area. Although Pennsylvania had a large, you know, concentration of them.
We've been to Philly so many times.
I mean, yeah, you could have just stayed in Philly and made almost the entire
Evan did
thing.
one of, do you know Evan Lescaletti?
Marietta.
He made a whole Philly document, pretty much the same thing, but just all
really
about
cool.
Philly bands.
Yeah.
There's enough there.
Yeah. No, I mean, like, whenever we would play there, those were, bar none, some of our best shows, too, because everyone was just so supportive there. But that's sort of what happened is the band started finding each other. We started finding each other, and then as a label, it was kind of like cherry picking because there were not really any other labels doing what we were doing. And we would play with these bands and be like, wow, these bands are incredible. Let's put out their music. And it kind of like built there, and then we just kind of kept together as, you know, as a whole. I felt like we built that community. Not like Count Your Lucky Stars, but everybody together, like the bands and everything. And one thing that I always found so amazing about it was, it wasn't just the bands that everybody felt that connection with, but like everybody that came to it was always so helpful. Like, I can't tell you how many like shows we played at people's houses, and they're like, you know, stay at our place and like, you know, hang out with them, become fast friends, and then those people would start new venues or start bands later, or other record labels or whatever, just like be really dedicated fans, and like we became really good friends and stuff. And so that whole sense of community, I don't think was just a band thing. I think it was also like just everybody in itself, and it just felt really special. So yeah,
totally. And
yeah,
like just a sense of belonging.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right?
Yeah,
even incubating like a sense of belonging
for sure.
Other bands.
Well, I can't tell you how many bands. Like for example, there's a band called the Goalies Anxiety the Penalty Kick, which they're on now, which we signed them. But Ben, one of the singers in the band, like he was a big Empire fan back in the day, so we had met way back then. Colleen from Thank You I'm Sorry, they had come and seen one of our shows, and so we already all these people like. And it's really crazy now because now it's been a while. Empire hasn't been a band for like 8 years or something like that.
6 years.
Yeah, 6 years. Yeah, 6 years. Yeah, and it's really humbling and strange that people still care, like that you guys are here, that they still care, whatever like that. But I feel like that sense of community just even from the very beginning and even now still carries through.
Yep. I mean, it's been special for us too, like, and given us some sense of belonging, just finding people who listen to the same stuff. Do you guys recall what it was like before having that? Like, and was it hard to find people?
Yeah.
Speak on that, like feeling like the only ones there for lack of.
I remember we went on a tour, and I feel like it was we played in Hammond, Indiana. And we met the Reptilian there.
Yeah,
right?
Even though they're from Michigan as well. That's
the first time we ever met them. And I remember we were just like talking, and then we got dinner afterward. And I think that somebody mentioned like maybe American football, and I was like, oh my God, there's somebody else that knows who American football is, But like nowadays, it's like like so.
They're like the biggest fan, but like at that. Well, I think another thing that like every other scene that I've been a part of. Even playing this style of music, it felt really like competitive, and people were kind of like trying to one up each other or like always kind of like compare themselves to another. But the really special thing about this scene is that it's really like people are helping each other, and I want the best for my friends' bands. It's amazing to see them succeed, and from the beginning, I think when we were doing it. Things kind of evolved, so it was very small, and then it got bigger, and I think like bigger labels started noticing that stuff and kind of seeing that stuff, and they plucked some bands or whatever. But for a really long time, it was just everybody helping each other out, and then that kind of happened for a minute, and then it kind of formed back down to the same type of thing now. But it's just really. I think the genesis of the scene is just that care for everybody. Like it's always silly because like you can't. I think it's difficult not to compare yourself to another band, but to be like, oh, why, how this band got this or whatever. But it's not apples to apples. Like we never played like super accessible music. Like if you listen to us to bands like Algernon or Snowing or Evan, Into It Over It or whatever. I mean like. Those are all different styles of music under the same umbrella, right? But so I think that it's great that there was such a large umbrella too, And I don't know, it just grew so organically and especially when we started doing it, everybody was just doing it because they loved doing it, and that really showed. I don't think it could have grown. In the way that it did, if it didn't happen organically, and like it's not like we thought, that we could do that for the rest of our lives. So it was like commercially viable or whatever. I mean, I can't believe that anybody cares now still, but like, yeah, I don't know, it's crazy.
Yeah.
People ain't doing it for the money.
Yeah, no,
it's genuine passion, which is a dying attribute, I'd argue. And then so thematically with Empire, what were you guys talking about? Like, what was the substance behind the music, and how was it beneficial to your mental health? Why was it important?
As for why we did it, I mean, I don't think that me personally, I couldn't not do it. It was one of those things where like I had to do it, and at that point in my life, especially, I think, like nothing else mattered to me. I had to play music, and I had to do that, and that's why we did it. I mean, through our entire career, almost every tour was DIY. Every tour was house shows, DIY spaces, basements, or whatever like that, and that always felt like at home and natural to me. And it's always funny thinking like you're in the middle of the country in some random person's basement and just feeling really good and really close to everybody, and like just having that like connection. And then lyrically, it was just like really, I think a slice of life type of stuff, especially as we went on. Just here's what's happening in our lives and kind of how we're struggling with it and trying to overcome it. And
here's a story that happened 20 years ago.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Well, I started off more vague and using a lot more metaphors and symbolic language. And as it evolved, I got to what I called like hyper specific, where I was like using people's names. And actually, for our last album, I remember before I like told people. So I wrote all these very specific things that happened to me. Like my job, I felt like as a lyricist at that point was paint such a vivid picture that you're kind of an observer as opposed to like placing yourself into it, which earlier stuff I think I kind of did the opposite, where you could kind of place yourself into it or whatever. But the later stuff was more like specific, like very, very specific things that happened to me that will never happen to anybody else. But like I remember calling all the people involved after I wrote the lyrics and like being like fact checking, because I wanted to get it as accurate as possible, because memory is like a faulty thing, right? And so if you can kind of all agree on stuff without like influencing them, yeah. So yeah, exactly.
Right. Remember, it looked really cool.
But I mean, I wrote about things that were silly. Like, well, we got married, and on the day of her wedding, she got into a car crash, and you know, it was one of those things where like if it had been like X amount of inches, you know, she wouldn't be here today, type of things or whatever. Kind of makes you reflect on things, you know, stuff like that. Yeah, but I think, you know, as far as like mental health goes, I mean, like being able to document those things and being able to get them out there. I mean, because you know, as an artist, I think you should do it everything for yourself, and then hopefully people enjoy it, because I think you can compromise it otherwise. But yeah, it's really. It's a really good feeling if people do connect with it, but like some of the stuff on that last album is so incredibly specific that like it's silly that, you know, like we flipped over like do you know what a pontoon boat is? It's like this like it's kind of like a raft, but it has these like metal tubes, like these huge metal tubes. It's very, very heavy, like tons or whatever.
Well, it was a raft. No, you didn't flip over.
No, I'm just. But it's a pontoon. A pontoon is that, and then a swim raft is like that stuff with the pontoon part removed. Sure. So it's like big, really, really heavy thing. And when I was in college, actually after a band practice, for some reason, I don't know why we did this, but me and 3 other friends of mine snuck over to my other friend, my roommate from my freshman year of college. I snuck over to his house. We got on a swim raft, which was like a ton or whatever, and we're like, it said on the side of it said unflippable, and we're like, well, we'll see about that. And we all got on like corners, and I don't know why, because why not, right? And we started flipping it or whatever, and then like the thing tipped over, and this thing weighs a ton, and it landed, really came really close to like smashing my head and Pat's head. And so, and then anyway, so I wrote a song about that, which is really stupid, but there I did that. So I don't think anybody's had that specific, thing. But like, you know, you can still draw, you know.
Totally.
Yeah.
And I'd argue it's cool that people even can find personal meaning from something.
Yeah, I think that's really, yeah. It is funny though when people will ask, like, what is that song about? And those songs are like, well, the song is literally whatever you're reading about. It is about that. Yeah.
And then you guys have a super serendipitous relationship, I think, just being that you create music together and have been able to stay together. Speak a bit, and go as personal as either of you guys want, but like how it's both benefited you guys, because it is a horribly intimate process, writing music. I mean, he and I do, and it's hard. So speak on how it's impacted your marriage, strengthened, and
Well, we're taking this minute now to announce we're getting divorced. Why don't you start? I got a dog.
Well, we've been together for a really long time, and so it's it's a big. There we go. Hi, Ollie. He'll be chill in like 5 minutes.
You gotta adjust to that.
Yeah.
Hi, I'm down, dude. Here, have
Treats, yeah.
This will calm you down. No, he's fine.
So it started out just as not a part of our relationship at all, and then it kind of developed into that. So it's kind of, I think that it was, it's kind of a push and pull. We're very similar in a lot of ways and very different in a lot of other ways. So I think that we creatively work together mostly pretty well, although we have different processes and things. So because we know each other so well, I think band-wise and outside of that, I think that we know, and we're also like we know like how to steer, like how, if we were writing something, he was more of the, coming up with ideas, like, and then, kind of the rest of us would kind of hop in. I like to sit on things more and, let it sink in and think about it and come back to it. And he's not like that. So it was just a lot of like, it took, I would say, a couple of years to try to figure out like how to make that work. With the band, don't you think? And
sure, yeah.
There were definitely some frustrating times, but we never let it spill over into our relationship. Even if there was any, even if we were kind of butting heads when it came to the band, there were times where I struggled a lot more, I think, than you did, especially with the lifestyle. It's a lot of work. And it's a lot of time, and I worked full time outside the house, and Keith had the label most of the time for the band, don't you think?
Yeah.
And so he had more flexibility than I had, just in general, and so there were times where I struggled with that for sure. But he was always so understanding, and I think everybody that's ever either been in our band or helped out with the band or whatever has been understanding of that too. As I got older, I didn't always want to sleep on like a dirty floor, I guess, for like a month and a half in a row, straight, so it was stuff like that, and what do you think?
Well, yeah, as time went on, I think that she enjoyed touring less. Mm-hmm. And just the creative process got harder for her, I think, as we get older and things are hard. And like, it was always my dream. She loved doing it, but it was like, that was like my passion or whatever. So the way our compromise kind of worked was, we had a bunch of like fluctuating members. It was just difficult to find people to play, especially here in Michigan. There's like not much, right? Around here, especially, and where we grew up. So it was hard to find people. And it kind of like, we kind of stumbled into this, but then kind of embraced this model where whatever band that I was touring with became my touring band. So like we would tour, let's say with Annabelle, and I would borrow Andy and Ben, and then, Kathy and I would play the other parts. And then that kept happening, and and we all the while we were trying to find members, but we had a really a couple of stable members, but as they would come and go. But like, anyway, after a while, Kathy was just, a little bit more over touring, and a little bit also financially, we couldn't really afford to both be on the road.
Yep.
And so I just started borrowing someone for Kathy too. So one of my really, really good friends, Warren Franklin, he started playing guitar like on almost every tour. We would tour with his band. Yeah, but whatever band. And like, so Ben from Annabelle and Andy from Annabelle, they actually both did double duty. Like Ben played guitar and bass on a couple tours. Andy played drums and bass. Joao filled in for us. The World Is filled in for us. Mountains for Clouds filled in for us. Man, that list is really big. Yeah, the drummer from Deer Leap filled in for us. The guitarist for Posture filled in for us. I mean, it's just like, I've played with so many different people. And what's interesting about that is, when I wrote the music, because in most of the Empire stuff, I played drums and bass and guitar, and then she played guitar. And I have a really bad memory for guitar stuff, so I would always tab it out right away. But then I had tabs to give to the other guitarists to play how to play that stuff, whatever. But and of course and I have bass tabs, but then drums, you just listen to it or whatever and pick it up. But like, what's funny is every single, and Reptilian filled in for us too, and every single combination of people that we had like a different feel to it. So like when Reptilian filled in, it was like more power based, and then when Dowsing filled in for us, I think Marcus was like had learned the parts more specifically. Stewart from Joie and Warren was like more power. So like everybody brought like their own style to it, and that was kind of interesting for me as especially when I let go of the fact that like I wrote it to sound a specific way, and then like all these people were doing like really big favors for us, and so like they put their spin on it, and like then it became kind of interesting to see how is this going to be interpreted by this person in this band or whatever. But that allowed me to keep touring, and I got really, really close with those bands that we toured with because it was me in the van with those other people. Plus, if we're talking about gas prices and stuff like that, it was 2 bands in one van. So we split. We could split that door money, and we could gas was much cheaper. Staying at a place was just one extra person. It was really easy for that kind of stuff. So it allowed me to keep doing it. As long as we did do it. So although it is very, very nice to have like permanent band members and like you know what I mean. So and even like I have 2 bands now. One is called Parting, and another one's called Mount Oriander. And Parting has permanent members when everybody writes their own parts, but Mount Oriander is like my solo project, and I'm doing the same thing, and I'm borrowing people to play shows. So. So yeah.
Do you guys know anybody?
Well, it's funny because it's different from my Ollie, come on, dude. We should not let him in.
Finish your tree.
Yeah. Anyway, Ollie, sit. Here, stop being a turd.
Treats.
Well, it's funny because Jacob, my friend who recently moved here, he ran a record label called Keep It Together, which was a cool tape label, and they had some awesome stuff. Anyway, he played bass for Mount Oriander, and we had borrowed. So the 3 people from Mount Oriander was him, and then Joe from Bicycle Sunday played guitar for me, and we were borrowing the drummer from Warren's band, so like. The drummer that we've been using for shows, whatever, lives in Illinois, so we can't do local shows right now unless we find a local drummer. And there was somebody over at doing housework for Jacob, and he was talking about like similar-ish style music, and we were like, hey, we should ask him to play drums for us.
Any chance?
Yeah, I was like randomly asked some random dude.
Funny.
Yeah.
And then so in retrospect, like, what are your guys' thoughts on the music? Because I'd imagine it's such a cool like time capsule of things you guys have done together. Like I imagine it's fairly sacred. But what do you guys think of all that you've done?
It's kind of it's interesting because there's like different parts of it. We stopped being a band before we had kids, so it's like a different life, almost. So it is kind of like a time capsule in a lot of ways. Like, a song will come out. If we like have shuffle on our music or something, and an Empire song will come on, or like our kids, especially our daughter, does know about like our bands. They know especially about Keith's newer bands just because we listen to him more, like he just wrote a song or that sort of thing, so she'll ask.
We listen to my music all the time. Hold me to my music. As I feel like you were saying that. Like, no.
It's really she had to have a dental procedure done a couple months ago, and she was really nervous, and it was really early in the morning, and I was driving with her to go to the place, and she was really scared, and she asked to listen to, like, can I listen to one of Daddy's songs, so it's kind of like a different relationship on that side of it, but it's also like I'm a little more removed from it just because I'm not as active with the label, and he's in bands and things like that, and so I don't really think about it all that much, but every now and then, something will either come up that brings it to my attention, or like, we live kind of out in the middle of nowhere, but just every now and then somebody will see us and be like, weren't you in Empire, or something, and I'm like, yeah, something that happened to me at work one day, like just random, so like I kind of don't think about it on the daily, but it's really cool. It's just like such a crazy time in our life, and I said that I kind of had like a little bit of a good and bad relationship with the whole thing, especially toward the end, but now looking back, it's just all positive, really, and I just think about the good times, and it's all happy memories, really, honestly.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of what I think about music is, there are some bands that are like perfectionists, and they really want to get like, of course you want to do like the best that you can, you know, but they like stress out. Some of my musician friends like, they rewrite and stress out, and sometimes don't have anything as a result of that because they're stressing out. And I kind of think like, music is such a artifact that's so specific to that time, and so like to me it's like you do the best you can in that period, and then you put it out, and then that's that. And so that's what that whole period feels like to me. Everything has such a time and a place for it, you know. But I don't know, it's hard for me to I think it's hard for me to like really understand like the impact that it's had, especially because growing up, like I loved like the bands that I loved, you know, that I listed very clearly right earlier, and it's really strange that anybody would associate like my band or anything that we've done in the same breath, and that's now a fairly common thing, and that's something that like it will never like not mean something to me, and so kind of the way that I think about all this thing is because those were just all my friends playing songs and music and together and just trying to keep doing it as long as we could, and then time is a funny way of like crystallizing things, and like it people are now nostalgic for that period when I was nostalgic for the previous time period or whatever. So I try and treat it with as much reverence as possible, and I look at like not just like what we did but collectively as a scene and how it existed for so long and so pure, that, you know, I'm well aware that's a very rare thing. That's a really rare thing, and I don't know how that, it just, like I said, because it happened so organically, you know. But I mean, I don't know, like, I think like, I look at all these, sometimes like people will talk about certain shows and they're like, oh, that show was stacked and stuff, and it's like, it's crazy that so many people were able to do it for so long and like always hang out with each other, and then it's like awesome because I was like, oh, I get to go hang out with my friends in this place, and I get to go hang out with my friends in this place, and
you're just like planning a tour, like, well, obviously.
Oh yeah, that was super common. I mean, actually, we routed tours like that all the time because we were like, our friends' bands can get us a show here and here and here and here, so that's the route we're gonna take. You know what I mean? And like, and a lot of those like festivals, like the I Got Brains Fest, which is really, really cool. They did 2 years of that. I was just looking at that shirt yesterday. 2 years of that. Johnny Kimmy did that, and from Flannel Girl Records. And some of the bands that played that, like Planes Mistaken for Stars, played that, but then a bunch of our friends played it. And I don't know, it was just really interesting because it was like not at all uncommon to be like, hey, it's my friend, and I see you in this state that's not the state you live in or the state I live in, and we're just like casually hanging out. You know what I mean? Especially like things like big festivals like Fest, when you're walking down the street and you see all these people you know or whatever. Yeah, it's special. And like I stopped playing music after Empire broke up for like a good number of years, and stopped really doing the label for a good number of years, and kind of just like needed to take a breather, you know. And the way I kind of felt about it at the time was because when we stopped doing Empire, it was time. We just knew it was time, and I didn't want to keep making music and feel like not genuine about it. And also, I feel like if we had made something, we could have kept doing it, right? If we had made something that was not genuine, and like it would kind of not only cheapen the work that we did then, but all of the work, you know, previous to that. So it felt like better to like let it go. And then my attitude on that was like, hey, if it comes back to me, if that feeling and love of playing music comes back to me, then that's great, and I'll start doing it again. Or it doesn't, and then I don't feel that loss because I didn't have that urge. Right. But fortunately for me, I feel like it did start coming back, and maybe someday she'll play again too. But like that happens, you know. If it happens, it happens. And I think that's kind of the whole beauty of a scene like that we're in, is like, because nobody or almost nobody could afford to, you know, nobody like made it to the like big like that, mostly from that scene, that it was a labor of love always, and thus a conscious decision to keep doing it, as difficult as that may have been. So then I think that, you know, the reasons were good. I mean, personally I think, and this actually attitude changed. In the beginning, nobody thought there was any possibility of making money of it, or even really thought about it. But as time went on, it started to become this thing where like people were like, hey, well, like people are coming out to see us, maybe we should get paid enough that we don't lose money, and then it kind of like evolved from that or whatever. And I think the attitude has changed now, where like it used to be if you had like a booking agent or a guarantee or something, people were like, oh, you're selling out or whatever. But now I think people are really supportive of it, and like in my mind, and my attitude changed about that too, because I first was like that too, and then as I got going, and like when bands use Kickstarter, I'd be like, why aren't they doing it? But like now it makes sense because it's more of a communal thing, right? And like for me personally, if a band is getting paid more money to do it, then they can keep doing it. And then think about how many amazing albums and songs we didn't get that we could have got if that attitude. Mm-hmm. So I think the nice thing about the scene as it's evolved is like the idea of like community and what it means to be an artist and what it takes to keep going has evolved too. And I think people are like, because I mean, I think about it, I'm really, really, really into board games. It's like my favorite thing, right? And super into that. We go downstairs and you'll see I have like over 600 board games. It's silly. But anyway, and their main method of funding games is Kickstarter. And I think like that kind of like turned me around to thinking like, well, wait, this is really the same type of thing, but even on a smaller scale. And so like the fact that you can be like directly, hey, this is my favorite band, I can help you keep going, I can help you create music, that's incredible. I think embracing that, which the scene has done now, that's really big. So I think the whole evolution of the scene, it's still evolving in a positive way, I think, yeah.
Totally. There's so much more artist, audience interaction for the support of the
right,
scene.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. What do you guys feel like you've learned from DIY or playing in bands and doing all this predominantly yourself that applies to like life now? If there is anything.
No, honestly, for me, I think a really, really, really big thing is the community, the scene that we're a part of, is really, really progressive. Sure. And so, like, things like that were not on, like, the, like, the fringe of, like, were fringe things for society. Like, even things like, transgender, pronouns, things like that. And, like, also, like, what it means to, make a living wage and how workers are exploited, and how we're in late stage capitalism. You don't want me to keep going on this, I could. But like, anyway, but I think like I think that that sense of progressiveness, I was a progressive person, but when I started the touring and really meeting people and talking to people and like meeting different people and like the whole scene is really progressive like that, I think that really carried over to my personal life, and it allowed me to become a much more open-minded and progressive person. And so and like just like the idea is like, are I think sometimes like difficult to struggle with at first, but the more that you're encountering that, and more that you're openly talking about that, the more that those ideas can carry on. And I think that's part of the problem with the country, is that when you have places like where we live, which can be a small bubble, and you only know a certain type of people or a certain idea or a certain ideology or whatever, that's isolating, and you tend to think that the rest of the world should be like that or is like that, and that's not the case. And so I think like touring and the openness of our community really led that progressive, and I took that ball and I ran super far with it. So
I think also just like that, I don't want to say nothing's impossible, but like, it doesn't mean it's going to be easy, but you can do a lot more things than you think. Like talking to people like at work, for instance, and so, sometimes I'll bring up that I used to be in a band, and they're like, oh my God. And then like, or something will come up and we'll be like, oh yeah, I have been to Japan. I went there with our band or whatever. And like, like I'm not bragging or anything like that. It's just making conversation, whatever, and it just seems so impossible to people. But like truly, like if you're interested in doing something, if you want to go somewhere, oftentimes you can try to figure out some way to make it happen. It might not be easy, it might not even be possible, but it's not impossible, I think so many people just hold themselves back because they think that they can't do it, or that they're not good enough at this. There's no point in doing this sport unless you're going to play it professionally or something. Like there's
well, that sheer willpower that she's talking about, I mean, you guys have that by making this. And like when you're talking about artifacts and like something special. Like before you guys had contacted us, I had seen some of your work, and I was like, wow, this is awesome. You know, the interview with Joe, and it's like, I don't know, and like something like this, especially in something that hasn't been well documented, like can easily be lost to like, you know, the sands of time, like, but you're doing it because you love doing it. And what's crazy to me is like the stuff that people, you know, tell us sometimes, people will tell you because putting a name and a face and voices behind stuff, I mean, that's, you can't, I can name on, okay, so there's a book by who is now my friend, his name's Eric Grubbs, and he did a book called Post, and it's about those early days, and it documents like Braid, Jimmy Eat World, and at the drive-in, you know, Palm Springs, stuff like that. And I got that book and I read that thing from cover to cover, and I swallowed the whole thing up. And what you guys are doing now is that, but in audio visual form. And so like you're taking something that, like you said, like is something that it could very easily not be known by anybody, and you're preserving that, and that's so important. So that's how I feel about, like, I'm a big archivist with that kind of stuff, and running a record label kind of feels the same way. All this stuff is like, it wouldn't exist in that form, and you were able to like give it a name and a face and put it out there in the world. And then like when you're doing something, like when you guys are editing and you're spending all these long hours on this passion project, driving from place to place or whatever, you know, you're taking that, and at some point it will mean, the crazy thing is, I guarantee this, what you guys are doing now will mean more to somebody else than it does to you at some point, which is the most insane thing, because you know how much you care about what you're doing right now. Like when people talk to me about songs that we've written and it means more to them than it did to me, it's such an overwhelming feeling, you know. And like, I don't know, so like as soon as you contacted me, like we talked pretty quickly after that, because I just love that idea, and like I think it's really special that is happening. So
thank you. Yeah, that is the point, man. I mean, when we find all these obscure bands, like when I was in high school and trying to figure out more about them, it's like there's nothing there. So I hope more than anything that the next kid who finds it will now be able to know a little bit more about whatever helps them get through the day, right? Which is this music did for me. And to your point, like, the more we've talked to people, like everyone's super humble, and I hesitate to use the word normal, but like you can still have this career of following your passion and fit in like functional life, which has been like something huge for me, because I'm super binary and like it's either this or that, but you can totally do both.
No, I mean, I also the thing that matters, I think, too, is like every day that you are further away from the original thing happening, it becomes harder to do those things, you know. And it's kind of interesting you guys doing it now, for example, with like us. Like I just started playing music a couple years ago again or whatever, but like, you know, like that accessibility kind of lessens after a while. And also like now I think we had like some perspective on the whole thing, and it's kind of interesting because like we would always talk about when the whole thing was happening, when we were touring and talking to our friends or whatever, and like it's really funny what bands are really important now that weren't important then. Like the American football effect happening. You know, like there are certain bands in our scene that like you never would have expected them to be like one of the more important. Like for example, Blockamora, I love those guys. We played a bunch of shows with them. They were an incredible band, and they didn't get as much respect when they were a band. But now
they're like,
people are like
one of the heaviest.
Yeah, exactly. And they weren't then, which was sad for them, but like awesome that now. Marietta is another band like that. Merchant Ships is another band like that. And then there are some bands that's really interesting that were like, I felt like were much bigger back then, but now are smaller bands. And it's so funny and you never can predict that stuff. I don't understand like why did one thing take, why did one thing not take, you know, or why do we have like the following that we have now, you know, and who knows, like I don't understand, but like it's really cool because nowadays, like when we were first getting into music, you know, this is before even like, you know, putting our age on here because we're about to be 40, but like, you know, Napster and Audio Galaxy and Kazaa and Morpheus and all this stuff. Anyway, the way that we got into music was like, usually you'd either stumble upon it or a friend got it for you or whatever, and then I would like pour over liner notes. Nice. And like then I would find bands like that. Actually, that's how I got into this music. And it's like the amazing thing about now is that you can find anything. If it's not on Spotify, then it's on YouTube or Bandcamp. You can find anything, and I love that accessibility, because then you can be like, here's this band, and then like automatically it'll be like, check this band out, and then it allows you to kind of like discover how you want to, and it doesn't have to be like, there are arguments for both. Like, it was a lot of work for us, and so I think we worked harder to get to find that stuff, and then like maybe tried harder digging, and that struggle was interesting, but just the amount of stuff that you can find it easily. So, see, now he's friendly. That's how he gets.
Of course, yeah.
Then he gets
Give
really
10 minutes and then we're
like
best
that,
friends.
yeah.
But to your point, like, I think there's something really beautiful about like the tangible search for music. Like, you have to meet people. It almost forces you to socialize a little more, right? Whereas I feel like growing up, like, it was a lot of just deep diving on the internet, which kind of, in a way, isolated me from, I think, that a community that probably was there.
Yeah.
So I do think there's totally two sides to that.
Yeah, but I think, but I will say the accessibility. Okay, so that band that I was talking to you about, that Kathy and I were in before Empire, called Anna Fly Away. Yeah. So we finished that recording, and then it sat dormant on a tank of an old laptop that somehow it still survived. And at some point, my buddy who records all of our stuff now, Matt Halliday, I got him those files, and he remixed it and really mixed it and mastered or whatever. And like, because I'm a big archivist too, and like those songs were just, nobody heard those songs before then, and that came out, I don't know, years and years after Empire broken up, and after Anna Fly Away broken up, like 10 years after we broken up, or somewhere on that time, 8-10 years, whatever. And like, those songs are now out there for everybody if they want to hear them. And I love that it exists. So the documentation of like all these things and putting a tangible physical thing to it, it's sacred. It's a special thing. And I don't think, I think like the accessibility of all that stuff just strengthens that, So, I mean, like, if you look at Empire's discography, I'm a huge collector, which is a problem. It's stupid.
Likewise. Yeah. I struggle with like material being at the same time it's again preserving something that happened. It's also collecting a lot of I could argue a lot of things against it, but I have an obscene amount of vinyl.
Well, the great thing about that though, it's that thrill, the hunt, finding it out, you know what I mean? And so like as somebody that same ilk, our discography is 1 million split 7 inches, variations and stuff like that. I mean, we're like a collector's nightmare. Yeah. And there's some stuff that's not even on Spotify that we put out or whatever. So there's a lot of like hidden treasures. I love that. And I think living that like kind of trail, because I love the idea of like, let's say Empire is your favorite band, and you thought you heard all the songs, but then you stumble upon this like one random 7-inch, and here's a new song that you've never heard before. Totally. And I, as a label, we kind of encourage that too. We had a bunch of like split 7 inches as well, and just random like releases and stuff like that. And so I think like all of that, tying that physical and the accessibility together. I mean, like, it's just awesome. And nowadays too, I think like when my band recorded my first album when I was like 17, it was like 1999. Okay. There's a band called Said the Girl, which you can't find anywhere. Sure. But anyway, we recorded on like a 4-track, and it was terrible. We were like, I can't believe we can record this. And then like we went to a studio for another album like a year or two later or whatever. But now you can just like I recorded all of what it takes, and somebody else mixed it and mastered, but I recorded all of that, and that was in 2008, 7, 8, 9, whatever the years it took to do that. And it sounds fine, whatever, but like the technology that exists now, that like even on like you can put we have practices for parting, throw an iPhone in the middle of the room and it still sounds pretty good. I mean, it's not like a professional recording, but like the fact that you can do that, I think that speaks to like now that you have that accessibility, so much more art can be produced, and you can take those chances, and money is less of a barrier for that kind of stuff. And therefore you have some stuff, and sometimes too it's charming even if it sounds really bad.
That's what I think. And I think there's kind of a demand for more like real music rather than super polished.
Right. And if you look at like, I would imagine you guys feel the same way that I do. Then it's like you know, like bands' early albums. I love when it doesn't sound quite good, and they're figuring it out, and it's like kind of rough around the edges.
We love
whatever.
that. We hear the feedbacks.
That's right. Yeah, and it's like
awesome.
not quite like they're not quite sure what they're gonna do, and I love that.
There's
I love
charisma,
that.
man.
Yeah, and you chart that like process as they grow. Yeah,
it's like the blues. Like
Yeah.
you know, it like really sounds like it's coming from that source, which is important.
Yeah, well, I think the biggest thing about like bands of like that we had, I think, especially starting out, is like, man, we didn't know what we were doing. It was all feel, all feel, and so like when it's all feel, I remember people be like, "Oh, what are you playing? What key?" And it's like, I don't know. It feels right or whatever. Singing, it just feels right. Like going for notes that I can't really get, but I was like, I'm gonna go for it anyway. And that kind of stuff. And I think that this genre is like really synonymous with that kind of stuff. And I think like it really like that expression of like caring comes through and stuff. So because even if like maybe it didn't quite land perfectly, but there's charm in that,
Yes, I could not agree more. And I think it's important to acknowledge like existence outside of music for both you guys. And I'm curious like what your job is outside of music.
I work at a credit union.
Okay.
Yeah, I work at the headquarters.
Sure. So my girlfriend does too. And it's full of a lot of tedious work, and I mean she's the customer service part of it. So
front facing is hard.
Yes, it is.
Yes, I do back end stuff. Fortunately, so I don't really have to talk to people.
But she did that.
So
before.
yes, I have. Yes. Yes. I try to talk to people as little as possible.
Sure.
I'll just say that.
Totally. And you, what do you do outside of?
I run record label full time.
Yep.
But I was a librarian for a long time. Okay. So after Empire broke up, I went back to being a librarian. And then I had, I probably would still be there today, but I had a nightmare boss that was causing me like really undue like mental stress. And I was like, this is not worth, so that was one reason actually I started doing the label again. I was like, I don't want to deal with this.
Something else.
So I started building up the label, and putting in my 2 weeks was like the best feeling in the world.
Congratulations.
Yeah, it was great, yeah. It's funny though, because it happened right before the pandemic, at the beginning of that year.
Oh my god!
Wild boy.
But it happened at the beginning of that, and then our kids were in daycare at the time, and Kathy was near Kathy's work or whatever. And it was funny because at that point, for the first like month or two, I was like rebuilding the label. Our basement had gotten really messy, and it was cleaning that and like rebuilding. Like just it takes a long time to relaunch a label or whatever. I was doing that. And finally get into a good place, and then COVID hit, and then everybody came back home, and we had to figure out how to work together.
Make that work.
Yeah. No, but I actually loved being a librarian, and at some point I might go back to it. But just like if you work in a toxic work environment, it's not worth it.
Yeah.
It's funny because I had like a lot of people were like, just like wait it out, and I was like, why? That's like
what's gonna change?
Yeah, and she's still there.
Yep.
And I'm not, and my mental health is like a million times better.
Good.
Actually, the other day, one of my friends who I worked with, we were both like commiserating in our misery.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of people that like stay at a job way too long, or whatever.
Oh, yeah,
and she finally left, and they're like, "We gotta throw you a party."
Yeah, we know the liberation that means, man. Yeah. I'm curious, what books do you read? I mean, I like a lot of Dostoevsky and Nietzsche.
Some real
Schopenhauer. Real
that's
heavy
awesome.
shit.
Yeah, that's heavy stuff. That's awesome.
What do you?
I'm really, really into postmodern stuff. Like John Steinbeck is my favorite author. Kurt Vonnegut. And also, growing up, I was a giant fantasy nerd. Like a giant fantasy nerd. So, like, I'm in the middle of the Wheel of Time series now. I have a pretty extensive library of that kind of stuff too. So
I can imagine.
Yeah, and then in my I don't read a lot of poetry, but I do have a poet that I really love, whose name is Robert Lowell, and we had this 7-inch that came out, an EP that came out exclusively in Japan, which is stupid, although it's available digitally everywhere. Called Home After 3 Months Away, and I named all of the song titles, all references to his work.
Sure.
So yeah.
And then what other mediums do you guys? Or, I mean, you have the Over the Garden Wall tattoo, which is like one of our favorite shows. What do you guys watch? A lot of movies because we splice like other media and just for B-roll for the teasers.
Enticing.
What do you guys watch? Anything? Or?
we are really big. Well, it is the golden age of television.
It is, my friend. Accessibility and it's good substance more often.
And like it's actually it's so difficult because there are a lot of shows that are like good but not great that I intend to watch. I'll probably never even watch them because there's so many good shows out there.
We have very similar taste, so we always want to watch it together.
We always so great.
So if we have time like apart, then we always watch like. Either thing,
kind of garbage stuff.
I'll wait till she gets home.
Exactly.
Bust out the good stuff.
So, but we usually watch, like, we end up watching, usually, like, for lunchtime, we'll watch, like, a half hour of TV a day.
Yeah, we just finished Our Flag Means Death. Our Flag Means Death. Ooh, it's so good. It's
on
a
show or movie?
Max. A show. It's a show. It's got Rhys Darby and, what's his name?
The guy who did, like, Hunt of the Wilder People and Where the Shadows Are. You know who I'm talking about? I have no idea how to say his name.
I'm terrible with names in general.
But he's really good in it. And we're watching Killing It now. It's got Craig Robinson in it, and actually one of the actresses from Our Flag Means Death. We just watched. Have you guys heard of Summer Camp Island? Okay, if you look over the Garden Wall, it's an animated show.
Yeah. Oh,
ooh, it's really good.
Okay.
Yeah.
Camp Island.
Yeah, it's really good. It's on HBO Max. I actually talk about media. Okay, so
big media.
Yes, because in the beginning of Empire, I had a couple songs that were references to stuff like titles or whatever. Usually the title has nothing to do with the rest of the song, right? But as I went on over and over, on time and time, like now literally every song that I have is a quote from either a video game, JRPGs, or a video game I love, or a TV or movie show. So like on a new album, there's a quote from Mountain Ranger's album. Is a quote from Ted Lasso. There's a quote from Secret of Evermore, which is a Super Nintendo game. Super Mario RPG, which is a Super Nintendo game. What else is there? Kipo and the Age of Wonder Beast, which is a cool animated show on Netflix. A D&D reference.
Sure.
But yeah, so I'm really big into like that media, and like I try, because I love it so much, I try and incorporate that into my work, which is also funny because like for example, How to Make Love Stay, which is the first song on What It Takes, that's a Tom Robbins reference from Still Life with Woodpecker. Sure. An idea is a greater monument than cathedral is a quote from Inherit the Wind, which is a movie about like separating church and state, I think, and stuff like that. It's been a while time since I've seen that. But like, yeah, so I at that point was like Easter egging it, and like our last album, there's the last song on it is called The Promise That Life Can Go On No Matter How Bad Our Loss Is, which is from Mockingjay. Actually, I wanted that one to be longer. I have a propensity, as you might know, to name things very, very long.
Maximalistic, yeah.
But anyway, like all those songs, like Ribbon, for example, is the first song on You Eventually Be Forgotten, and it's also the name of our graphic novel. We did a graphic novel, and Ben Sears, who was in like Xerxes and Mountain Asleep, very, very talented musician, really talented. I'm really into graphic novels as well, and he's really good. He's a good artist. He's got his own series, Double Plus, and much other stuff. Anyway, he did the graphic novel. I'll give you guys a copy of it before you go.
Yeah, I like Alan Moore.
Yeah, well, that's awesome.
Yeah. Have you ever read Blankets?
Yeah.
That's
I love Blankets. I love Blankets. I own Blankets. It's really good. That kind of. In fact, I love that. One of my favorite authors. Her name is Rutu Modan. She actually was. This is really funny. I became Facebook friends with her. Okay. She's like I think she's like in her 40s or 50s, and she's like a Israeli and cartoonist or whatever. And if you're friends with me on Facebook, I apologize. I shit post like all the time. It's like embarrassing. And like sometimes I'm like, and I wanted to talk to her about doing art for like an album or whatever like that. And it's like, please don't look at my profile. And I can't not like do
just
that.
Message
so
me.
we're somehow still friends. I don't know how. She's an unfriended.
Persevere.
Yeah. Yeah. But yeah, that kind of stuff I love, and I think. What about you guys? What do you guys love?
Oh man, films just like Andrei Tarkovsky, like Stalker, like old Russian cinema.
Okay, yeah.
That we like a lot. Have you ever heard of Lars von Trier?
Mm-mm.
Yeah, okay, he's a Dutch director. A lot of foreign film.
Oh, cool, yeah.
Oh, cool.
A lot of really provoking stuff, I think I like. Linklater. Richard Linklater.
Yeah,
which is a stream of consciousness.
Yes.
Slacker, I think is phenomenal.
Yeah.
A lot of we have
Kevin Smith.
Yeah, Kevin Smith. I like
Kevin Smith's great, yeah.
Clerks, I think, is actually really smart, honestly. But yeah, dude, a lot of obscure VHSs. And
Cool.
When you talk about, when we're also talking about like that documentation of like things being not forgotten.
Yeah.
That period of time between VHS and DVD, there's so much stuff lost, I think, in that, and it's like sad that a lot of that stuff is just, and it's crazy to me that some of that stuff could never resurface. You know what I mean? And so having like, and hopefully that stuff finds its way back to market. And I think the cool thing with having a zillion different streaming networks is they're always looking probably for like cheap media, and they might like incorporate some of those things back. Because I'm a big fan of like movies. Speaking of movies or something, I like those like dramedies. Like there's a movie called Away We Go with John Krasinski and Maya Rudolph. And, Manchester by the Sea.
Sure, yeah, that came out fairly recently.
Yeah.
Heavy one, right?
Yeah, I like those kind of like, it's kind of sad, heavy, beautiful. Life is beautiful, but it's also
bittersweet.
sad.
The frigid, the human condition.
Yeah, those kind of movies I think are great. My favorite movie, if you guys have ever seen, is Inside Llewyn Davis.
Yes,
we
that's
love
what we love. Green Rocky. The Coen brothers are fantastic.
Yeah, so good.
Yeah,
so
and the
good.
palette on that movie, the blues, and it's a heavy movie.
Yeah, it's so. I felt like really like.
That's great.
Yeah, and watching that too, I felt like I saw a lot of myself in that movie.
Sure.
You know, Oscar Isaac is fantastic.
The man in
He's
that,
fantastic. Science Asleep that he was in before. Like there's a lot. That's a really good movie. Michel Gondry stuff. Wes Anderson. I'm a huge
Wes Anderson's great.
fan.
What'd you think of the French Dispatch?
I liked it actually. I liked it. Yeah. I thought it was interesting because it's like vignettes of everything, you know, and so it felt a little disjointed, but it did come together. I think I really liked it, and I hadn't seen it was the first movie that we had seen in theaters since COVID had hit or whatever, so it felt like really comforting to kind of come back to that.
Sure.
There's that the only Wes Anderson movie that I really thought was fine was you guys have seen the Darjeeling Unlimited?
Yeah, Adrian Brody, Train.
Yeah, I just felt like he was like phoning it in at that point.
Yeah,
like, it was just like if you had
par
seen,
of course, man.
Yeah, and then like I think that he kind of course corrected after that because what's the one after that?
Wasn't Grand Budapest?
No, the one
Moonrise
Moonrise Kingdom was next after that, and then like. Yeah, he kind of, I think, found his footing again, which I think is common even in all art, and I think it's like...
You get stagnant.
Yeah, exactly, and I think, like, and that might be someone else, like, when we talk about favorite things, that might be someone's favorite movie of his, right. And I'm sure it is, in fact, for example, my favorite Death Cab album is the Photo album, and the band, and the people in the band, Ben Gibbard does not like that album,
sure.
But that's, like, my favorite album, you know what I mean? And so it's kind of cool that, like, different things mean different stuff to different people.
We hear this a lot in this genre or umbrella of music. There's a lot of embarrassment about what people have made in the past because sometimes it is sad or whiny, whatever you want to call it. I guess my last question regarding Empire and Empire would be like, are you guys satisfied sonically with it, and do you feel it was a good representation of what you guys were trying to make?
Yeah, I mean, I think so. I mean, I just wanted to be Mineral and Jimmy Eat World and Absolute Cast and Knapsack and Get Up Kids. I was going through my entire list again. That's what I wanted to do, and I think we did that. I honestly don't think there were a lot of bands that did what we did. That side of the coin. I think Joao might be one of the fewer bands. Bicycle Sunday. There's not a lot of bands that did that. What I really think is funny though is that American football. Everybody cites them as being like such an influence, and I love that first album. It's great, whatever. But what's interesting is like no bands really sounded like them though. It's like they took like the open tuning and that's it. You know what I mean? Yeah. And that never really made sense to me. So,
from our perspective, American football, and like we like some of their cuts, but they're very much like the status quo for.
Yeah, and it's funny, right? It's funny that they became that because they were not that at all.
Sure. But I think it's. Not even in a good way that they're status quo.
Yeah,
I think it's cooler to see maybe what's taking influence from that. And
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, yeah, and that's why it's cool. One really cool thing about being a band in that time period, especially, and being a band and running a record label now, even still, is like kind of seeing that like journey that the bands are taking from, you know, all like talking about what they're doing and kind of going through that process or whatever. Yeah, I mean, I'm okay with. I mean, Bob Nana from Braid, which is one of my favorite bands, Braid. He sang on one of our songs. Chris Simpson from Mineral sang on one of our songs.
We were going to talk to Chris.
Yeah, he's incredibly nice.
Yeah.
Super, super nice, and was always like, I messaged him on MySpace, and he came to one of our shows, and my mind was like, I was like, is that Chris Simpson? I was wearing a Mineral shirt at the time, and I went to the car and changed because I felt so embarrassed. I was wearing a Mineral shirt. Whatever. You know, and Pat Ford from Colossal sang on a song, so look, a lot of my heroes, I've been fortunate enough to, like, you know, work with them or whatever. But I think that's the cool thing about this is, like, when you talk about that accessibility, is like, that stuff can happen
here,
you know?
In this genre.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, no other place can I imagine.
No,
actually being able to reach out.
Yeah, it's not like Adele's gonna guest vocal on like one of your band songs or something. I'm sure. I'm a texter. So, what are you doing right now? Going down to your basement and like record us, you know. But I mean, yeah, I think that like that lack of pedestal that people tend to have. I mean that. But that's what allows that community to preserve and persevere and progress, you know, and become like a, you know what it is today. So it finds a way, you know, and it finds a way better. It's better now. It's better now than it was when we did it. It just keeps on moving, you know.
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't know. It's great.
Excellent.
I'm good.
I think you nailed it. Ended on a really good note.
Well, thank you.
Yeah.